Is there really a moderation when it comes to using drugs?
Is there really a moderation?
Yeah.
Oh, well, obviously. First of all, what drugs are you talking about? Because it's not like drugs is kind of a...
Let's start with weed. It's Seattle.
Yeah. Well, look, I've seen lots of people messed up by marijuana. I had a friend who I think it certainly contributed to his suicidal psychosis, I would say. Now, it's not exactly clear because he might have been using it to self-medicate. So I couldn't tell if it was, a chicken or egg problem, if it was the pot driving the slowly developing psychosis or the reverse. But I don't think pot was good for him. And I've seen a number of people like that. That doesn't mean that I think it should be illegal, because it isn't obvious to me that the best thing to do with dangerous things is to make them illegal. It doesn't seem to work very well. And it's not like alcohol isn't a bloody catastrophe. About 5% of people who take a single drink, who start with a single drink, become alcoholic. There isn't a drug you can possibly use that's worse than alcohol. And I know the drug literature. I'm not saying that lightly. Alcohol is the only drug we know that makes people aggressive. Almost all violent crime, huge proportion of violent crime, is committed by people who are drunk. Often on people who are drunk, by the way. You've about 50%, if you're murdered, there's a 50% chance you were drunk. And if you're the murderer, there's about a 50% chance you were drunk too. Actually, the best way to get murdered is to drink with family members. So, it's actually, I know it's funny, but it's also true. So
that's the one thing that's going to be recorded from today.
Yeah. So if you're looking to get murdered, that's how to do it. Try it at a special occasion. That's the best time to really pull it. Look, if you're using a substance, and it's interfering with your life, then that's not good, right? So that's how you judge it. But it's the case. Because then you're starting to overvalue it, because values have to be balanced. It's like, well, if you want to smoke pot once a week and relax or listen to music or whatever, it's like, well, okay, go ahead. If you want to have a couple of drinks at a party with your friends, fair enough, but you want to belt down 40 ounces of vodka a day for 20 years, that's probably not a very good idea. And people do that, by the way. I studied alcoholism when I was a PhD student, and we studied people. So these were men, and to be in our study, you had to be non-alcoholic, but your father had to be alcoholic, and so did at least 2 other first or second degree male relatives. We had lots of people in our sample whose fathers would buy 1 40-ounce bottle of vodka a day and 2 on Saturdays because they needed 1 for Sunday. And they'd been doing that for years. So that's not a recipe for a good life. So if it gets out of hand, well, first of all, it might get out of hand because drugs tend to get out of hand. But if it does get out of hand, then obviously that's not good. It has to be balanced. You have to be in control of it rather than the other way around. And like with the wicked drugs like cocaine or methamphetamine, it's like you think you're in control. It's like, yeah. You do it 50 times and see who's in control. And here's what happens. It's really awful. So when you take a drug like methamphetamine, it produces a dopamine kick, and that's a neurochemical. And the neurochemical makes you feel like you're doing something worthwhile, because dopamine is the system that mediates goal-directed action, and so it makes you feel like you're doing something worthwhile. So that's why people love to take those drugs. But the problem is that, so imagine that there's a chain of neural events that occurs just before you get the hit from the drug. And then imagine that what happens is that the dopamine makes those circuits grow in proportion to how close they are temporally to the drug experience, because that's what happens. And so basically what happens is, imagine there's a set of habits that you engage in, cognitive, emotional, behavioral, that precede the drug use. And that constitutes like a little family of biological circuits. It's a little personality. It's a little drug-seeking personality. Every time you hit it with the drug, that grows and grows and grows. And as it grows, it learns how to inhibit all the rest of you. And then what happens is that let's say, here's what happens to chronic drug users. So that's in you. It's not psychological. You've built it. It's a biological circuit, and it's there, and it's alive, and it wants to stay alive, and it wants to dominate. Okay, so now you're all screwed up on methamphetamine, so someone throws you in a rehab center, and you go through withdrawal, and you're no longer physiologically dependent on the drug, right? So you're not going through withdrawal anymore. Maybe that takes like a week or 2 weeks or whatever. You're not craving it. You're in the rehab center. Fine. Then you go home. Then you see your methamphetamine friend. Poof. That cues that biological circuit. That thing hasn't gone away. That's the monkey on your back. It's not on your back. It's in your brain. That thing comes flying back in full force. And the probability that it's going to grip your behavior and take you down the same pathway is unbelievably high. Everybody relapses. So you put them in a rehab center, they're fine. You take them out and you put them back with their half-witted, drug-abusing friends, they're back addicted just like that. And so that bloody system won't go away until another system is built to inhibit it. Right, and that's very, very effortful. Like it'll degenerate, it'll decay across time, but it's like months or years. And you have to build other systems to inhibit it. And then if you get stressed, those newer systems collapse first and the old one will pop back up. So be careful what you do habitually, especially if you reinforce it with drugs, because that increases the rate at which the habit sets in. So beware. And the most dangerous drugs, alcohol for sure, that's a killer. The real dopaminergic kick drugs, heroin, cocaine, methamphetamines, especially in injected form, man, those things are dangerous. You play with them at your peril. So the hallucinogens, they're not addictive, but what did Jung say? Beware of unearned wisdom. Right.